All right, chapter 12, section 3. We're going to be using more of our functions and applying them with our coordinate plane. Um, X and Y typically are going to be given. The only other thing we need to find before we can put together our chart is going to be R. And the way we find R is by squaring X and squaring Y, adding those together, and then taking their square root. All right, so let's give this a shot with example 1. Okay, they've given you already what X and Y are. And here's X and there's your Y. All right, so I know off top that X is going to be -3 and Y is going to be -4. Now I just need to find what R is. And I'm going to use this formula we used up here to find out what R is. So R is going to equal this. Okay, and if we square those and add them together, we get 25. And the square root of 25 is 5. So we're going to throw a 5 in. Whoops, I wrote R again. There we go. And we need everything we need to do in order to find the 6 trigonometric functions, okay, of that angle. So let's look and do this. We've got sine, we've got cosine, and we've got tangent. Let's see here, sine is going to be y over r. So y is -4, r is 5. So sine is going to be -4 over 5. Okay. Cosine is going to be x over r. So cosine is -3 over 5. Tangent is going to be y over x. So we've got -4 over -3. And two negatives in a fraction are going to become positive. So we have 4 over 3. Cosecant is r over y. So we have r as 5. And we have y as -4. Secant is going to be r over x. So we've got 5 over x. And cotangent is x over y. So cotangent is going to be -3 over -4. And two negatives in a fraction are going to become positive. And that is your 6 trigonometric functions. All right, due for time on our video, I'll list the answers for number 1 if you want to try that. I'll put the answers down in your notes. So the answers will be there. Go ahead and try that one. And then you can look in your notes to get the answers of that to see if you can do that. Just do the same exact thing that we did up here. Okay? All right, moving forward. Okay, quadrantal angles are going to be your angles that lie on your y or your x-axis. So I know that 0 lies right there. We have 90, we have 180, and we have 270. All right, and then you can throw 360 in if you want there, but 360 is going to be the same thing as 0. Okay? All right, let's move forward. All right, number 2, the terminal side of an angle in standard position contains the points at -2 and 0. Find the values of the 6 trigonometric functions. We're going to do the same thing we just did, except you notice that they've added a 0 in here. Okay, so some things we're not going to be able to do. All right, so first off, let's get our chart. We need x, we need y, we need r. Okay, x is -2. Y is 0. Okay. R, we're just going to say we're going to do the same thing we did. We're going to say R equals this. And we can't square 0 anymore. 0 times 0 is 0, so we don't need to include that. -2 squared is going to be 4. And therefore R equals 2. So we've got 2. Okay. All right. So moving forward, what we're going to do now is figure out what our 6 trig functions are. Now that we have a 0 in play, some of these are not going to work. All right. So let's go ahead and list sine, cosine, and tangent. All right. And we're going to use that same chart that we had from the beginning. So if we go up here, we looked at sine is y over r. Okay, so y over r, 0 over 2. I can have 0 in the numerator. That's okay. All right, and if we look up here at cosine, sorry if the video jumps, I had to stop for a minute. Cosine is going to be x over r. So we'll go down, and x over r is -2 over 2, which is going to be -1. Tangent is y over x. So I've got y over x, 0 over -2. All right. And now we just need to figure out what cosecant is. Again, I'm just using this chart at the beginning of your notes. Cosecant is r over y. So r over y, and I get 2 over 0. And I cannot do 2 over 0 because 0 cannot be in the denominator. All right, so that would be undefined. Let's see here, cosine. Cosine. I'm sorry, secant. We did cosine already. Secant is going to be r over x. So I'm going to go back here and put r over x, 2 over -2. That gives me -1. Last but not least, we have cotangent. And if I go back up to this chart, cotangent, it's going to be x over y. So I've got x over y, which is going to be 0 in the denominator again, and I cannot do that one. All right, so out of all those, we only could use sine, cosine, tangent, and secant because I cannot have 0 in my denominator. All right, so let's move on and look at reference angles. Okay, the main part of reference angles, what we're going to use is this guide right here, where I'm starring, and we're going to have to pay attention to what quadrant that angle points to. Okay, so let's go ahead and try 3A and 3B to figure out what reference angles are. So I'm going to sketch, like it says, angle that's a -110 degrees. And if you're like me, I like working with positive angles. All right, so I'm going to take -110 and I'm going to add 360 to it to get its positive measure. And if I add 360 to -110, I get the angle 250 degrees. So I'm going to use 250 degrees here. All right, and I'm first going to draw my side that we line up with the protractor, and 250 degrees is going to go about right here, right before 270. All right, so that's 250 degrees. Or I could say that's -110, but I like working with positive angles. It's easier. Whatever you want to work with is fine. So this is in, I've got a quadrant 1, I've got quadrant 2, I've got quadrant 3, and I've got quadrant 4. And as you can see, this is pointing in quadrant 3. So I look at quadrant 3 and it tells me to use that angle, the positive angle, and subtract 180 from it. So I'm going to take 250, subtract 180, and I get 70 degrees as my reference angle. Okay? Now, when it's in radians, we're going to use what we did in last section, and we're going to convert to degrees. So we're going to convert it. Okay? And to convert it, I'm just going to multiply times 180 over pi. Okay? Now, converting that is going to cancel out those pi's. And I got 2 times 180. And if we type that in our calculator, we know that that is 360. And I've got 3 in my denominator. So now I'm going to do 360 divided by 3. And I get 120 degrees. Okay, so you would sketch that angle. And if you sketch that, 110 degrees is going to be over here a little past 90, and that's in quadrant 2. Okay, so quadrant 2 is telling me to do 180 degrees minus whatever the angle I have. So I'm going to do 180 minus 120, it's given right here, and I get 60 degrees as my reference angle. All right.